I think that's a good reason, just to have a general empathy and compassion for other people. You can always say America first, right, and whatnot, but at the end of the day, we're all living here, and just because someone was born outside of the U.S. doesn't mean that they should necessarily suffer. And I think it's a worthwhile endeavor to help out other people.
Okay. Why are empathy and compassion important?
Empathy and compassion, why they're important? That's a great question.
So first of all, hey, I'm Nate.
I am Forrest.
Forrest? Nice to meet you, Forrest.
Nice to meet you.
So what I'm doing is I'm having interviews with people about something that's important to them. And really can be any sort of topic. But the idea is that I'm trying to model how to have conversations with somebody about something that could be like potentially divisive or emotional in a way that illustrates how to talk to people about these sorts of things so that we don't get like real upset at each other, we don't get mad, but we can still explore them and challenge ideas in like a respectful but serious way. And so that's kind of the idea of what I'm doing. Does that sound okay with you?
Yeah, for sure.
And you're all right with it being recorded and everything?
Yeah.
Awesome. So there are a few different ways we can go about this, but one way to do it is to just solicit and ask you what's something that is important to you, any sort of topic that means a lot to you, that maybe informs your behavior, maybe something where if you changed your mind about something, it would possibly change your behaviors, change your life in a meaningful way. Is there anything like that in your life where that's something that you maybe believe in strongly?
I mean, yeah, there was something I was going on the other day, but I feel pretty grounded in my place of being correct on this. But I don't know if it's like, if I change my mind, it would change how whatever. But
Okay, but something that you do feel really strongly about?
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
and
I do.
before you get started, is it Forrest with 1 R, 2 R's?
2 R's.
2 R's, all right.
2 R's for sure.
Forrest,
Yeah,
all
no
right.
problem. No problem. No, so I got on this the other day with some friends. There's a janitor here at PFW who enjoys a good conspiracy theory
Okay.
and loves talking about them, loves telling people about them. And I'm an anthropology major, and I really like archaeology and looking at that stuff. So when people tend to talk about like the ancient aliens things, or with the pyramids, or the Morai and Rapa Nui, or just conspiracy theories,
I don't even know what
general,
those ones were, so that's new to me.
it's
That's okay, you don't have to go into
it's
it. but-
something. But I feel very strongly against those conspiracy theories of
Okay.
ancient aliens. I went on for a while talking about that, and then talking a little bit about just some processes.
Yeah. So were you discussing these things with that janitor?
No, because I didn't have the time to.
Okay.
And no, I'd been cornered by him before and knew that he could go quite on.
How have those conversations gone for you before?
I've had a few conversations where I have been like, that's not right. That's not true.
How do you feel like he responded to that? Or in other situations where you've had conversations with people like that?
The janitor specifically, he doubled down. He doubled down on it. Went a bit further on his conspiracy theory. So the idea of like the pyramids were built by aliens and not by people. He doubled down on it as like the pharaohs were aliens.
Yeah.
Who were deemed to be gods and whatnot. It was really crazy.
Why do you think he did that?
I think that, especially when it comes to like conspiracy theories or maybe a public narrative of history, specifically with conspiracy theories, that it's a great way that if there's a hole in it, it can easily kind of be patched. Or if someone's coming after your worldview, it can become a pretty defensible thing, right?
Yeah, if something's part of somebody's worldview, then maybe there's like an emotional attachment to that sort of thing.
Or their understanding of how the world works.
Yeah. Yeah, and actually that's kind of ties into what I'm doing, right? What I'm trying to model is something called street epistemology. And the idea is being able to have these conversations, right, and discuss those sorts of things in a way where we don't solicit those kind of defensive doubling down reactions, where we don't trigger somebody's emotions. The hope is that we can inspire the person we're talking to critically reflect on the thing that they believe, but in a gentle way where it's almost like you're helping them explore their own belief, as opposed to just telling them that they're wrong and getting that negative reaction. So after we have this conversation, I'll give you my card and everything, and I would encourage you to look into it because it might help you with those conversations in the future.
Sounds like it might help.
Yeah, absolutely. But as far as this interview, though, this conversation, I'd rather not explore something that is like, oh, I don't believe this. It's better to kind of frame the conversation in like a positive claim, something that you do believe is true, something you do believe in. Is there anything like that you can think of where? I mean, it might still be some way of phrasing what you're saying in a more positive way.
What do you typically get out of response or out of interviews?
I've had a lot of different conversations about all sorts of different topics. I've had people talk about their belief or disbelief in like religious claims, whether God exists. I've had people bring forth like political topics, things about race relations, things about gender, transgender rights. Had things about kind of like civic issues. It really just kind of depends on the sorts of topics that might be on somebody's mind recently and the things that they feel strongly about.
Okay. I recently was in a conversation about a civic issue.
Okay.
That me and this person kind of felt a little bit opposite on. We were talking about foreign aid, especially towards nations in war.
Okay.
Obviously, the big ones right now with Ukraine and Israel, but we were discussing more broadly than that, not those two specifically.
Okay,
but
so
just maybe how the use of taxpayer dollars go.
Okay, like foreign policy, especially as it goes to aid, like wartime aid, particularly like defense aid.
Well, not necessarily wartime aid, but just how much aid is being spent on other nations.
Okay.
That can for sure be perceived as developed nations.
Okay. Do you have a strong opinion on this?
Yeah. When it comes to the amount of money you're given to foreign aid, I feel like I'd rather see it more focused on domestic issues, especially with housing crisis happening, and then for sure, as a college student right now, everyone's thinking about student loans, and how that money that's spent on other nations could be used domestically to better our lives.
Okay. So, the U.S. should spend less on foreign aid in general? Full stop?
I mean,
Or-
it shouldn't cut off, obviously, right?
Yeah, you could go into... no, sorry. When
Yeah.
I say full stop, I just mean like period. Like, that's a good claim right there. Less, not none. I'm not trying to say that. Sorry. If
You're fine.
I misunderstand you, please let me know. I'm going to try my best to make sure I'm understanding what you're saying.
So no, I think they should spend less on foreign aid and focus more on domestic issues.
Okay. On a scale from 0 to 10, or 0 to 100, or whatever kind of scale you might be comfortable with, how confidently do you feel that we should do this?
How confidently do I feel?
Mm-hmm.
Probably.
Or how strongly do you feel?
Probably around 70%.
Okay.
I recognize that the U.S. is a huge player in foreign affairs and the global economy, and just about every nation in the world has relations with us, positive or negative, and we impact a lot of people around the world. And I don't think that we should, completely shut off or turn our back on the rest of the world. However, I think there could be a little bit more of a focus, especially when it comes to taxpayer dollars on domestic use, especially when we're having so many people with lower wages, higher prices, just a little bit of an economic downturn at the moment.
Okay. All right, so I'm hearing kind of a few different reasons that you're giving for why you're thinking this way. First of all, you just think that money maybe could be better spent at home, helping people with economic issues that we're having at home, inflation, economic downturn, housing crisis, probably a few other things we could think of off the top of our heads. And so that's part of the reason why you're thinking we should spend less on foreign aid, right? Because we could divert money to spending more at home. But then you're also saying, kind of on the other side, that you realize the U.S. plays a prominent role in international affairs and international policy in a variety of ways. And so is that like a reason why you're not higher than 70%?
Yeah, right. Because let's say you went from less to none on foreign aid. You're cutting off a lot of people, a lot of different countries from the resources they need to just exist, or just to help them develop a little bit more to have a higher quality of life. And I recognize that how we are so now integrated into a global system that you can't turn off the faucet of foreign aid, and you definitely can't necessarily turn it down a whole lot.
Can't turn off the faucet.
Yeah.
What sort of consequences can you think of for if that sort of thing happened?
You turned off the faucet. I mean, there's, if you want to talk currently, Ukraine and Israel are using a lot of U.S. funds to fight their wars. You also have a lot of developing nations looking to the U.S. for food resources, just in general. Looking at developing nations and investments in other nations turning off as well. So I think there would definitely be a slower economy in a lot of the world.
Okay.
If not all of it.
Yeah, so you're seeing that there being potentially, if the U.S. were to decrease or maybe heavily decrease or cut off aid, that there could be a lot of these negative consequences for people around the world. Why is that a good reason, right? The fact that this global system exists and that a lot of the world might be dependent on U.S. aid. Why is that a good reason to keep spending money on foreign aid?
I think that's a good reason, just to have a general empathy and compassion for other people. You can always say America first, right, and whatnot, but at the end of the day, we're all living here, and just because someone was born outside of the U.S. doesn't mean that they should necessarily suffer. And I think it's a worthwhile endeavor to help out other people.
Okay. Why are empathy and compassion important?
Empathy and compassion, why they're important? That's a great question. I think without empathy and compassion, you kind of maybe will find yourself consumed with greed. You might find yourself exploiting other people, manipulating them. And a lot of just people trying to live from their day-to-day life is going to become impossible for a lot of people. Just the general charity of people just walking down the street, seeing someone or stopping by the Salvation Army buckets during Christmas time, throwing some cash in there, it helps people just live. And I feel like compassion and empathy is important as both a way for people to express social behavior and be well integrated into a social environment as well.
Now, coming back to the original claim that you were making, you were saying the U.S. should spend less on foreign aid, right? You're maybe 70% confident that that's what we should do. We've kind of explored maybe some reasons why aid is important. We came down eventually to empathy and compassion for other people, and that giving aid, helps support so many people to be able to have good lives or better lives or improve well-being around the world.
Mhm.
Does that sound accurate?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but you also said that, this is your position. You think we really should spend less on foreign aid. And one of the reasons why you were saying that was that we could maybe spend that money better at home. So what are some reasons, kind of thinking about, all those things we already explored for maybe why aid is good, why should we then spend less on foreign aid? Why should we spend that money at home? What are your primary reasons for that?
I think that we could definitely spend more at home, or maybe even more in an efficient manner if you kind of want to lower that 70% down a little bit more. Just because there are a lot of people in the U.S. who still suffer, and there's a lot of people who don't necessarily believe in social aid or social welfare. However, it does benefit a lot of people's lives, especially with a lot of the younger generation trying to purchase houses and just trying to meet the general cost of living becoming more and more difficult. I hear about it all the time from my friends who are 25 or in their mid to late 20s about how it's just kind of hard to make ends meet, and they have professional jobs. They're not working some fast food job flipping burgers. They're working in academics, which isn't necessarily a historically well-paying job, but still a worthwhile endeavor in a professional career.
Okay. So you see that there's need domestically, there's also need internationally. And so you see maybe that needs are not being met at home. And so that's why you're thinking maybe we should try to divert some of this funding from international to domestic. How do we prioritize, or how best should we prioritize that spending?
Yeah.
Why or when maybe should we favor trying to support Americans and possibly young Americans, young people who are struggling versus helping people internationally who might be struggling? How do we navigate that?
It's going to take a lot of push and pull, right? Because you're not going to go till every American is living at such a high quality of life that all their needs and wants are met, and then whatever is left over is going to foreign aid. I think you're kind of right about how it's... Hi, how you doing?
Hi, welcome to Shakes.
Hi, welcome to Shakes.
I'm back again.
Maybe it's about trying to find a balance there, right? Because you're not going to be able to fund every American's need or wants and whatnot. However, when there is crises at home, especially now, even not necessarily just the younger generation, even older Gen Xers and maybe some boomers are feeling the pinch on their social security checks, maybe feeling the pinch of their corporate jobs aren't necessarily delivering the same ideal they had when their parents were growing up, or their parents were living that same life. It's just trying to find that balancing act of, you don't want to put so much into foreign aid that domestic development in the public realm and area starts to fall apart, while also trying to ensure that the U.S., which is so important to a lot of international countries, that is redundant to say.
That's okay.
A lot of countries.
I understand. I stumble over my words all the time. It's
we're
okay.
Getting there. We're getting there.
I didn't even catch it, so you're all right.
To make certain that they're not also just going to take a massive hit out of nowhere and an unexpected source of aid is just suddenly cut off, or suddenly decreased by so much.
Yeah. Does the time scale of shifting this money make a difference?
I think it for sure does. It for sure does. If you're gonna roll out a plan to cut foreign aid, and you give everyone a month of notice, hey, gotta start stockpiling your own funds, all your own wealth and capital, but you only have a month to do it before you cut off aid. And obviously some countries are going to be more affected than others. Some be like, all right, cool, we're going to be okay. Others will be hit much harder. So I think if you're able to roll this plan out of just slowly decreasing or even doing smaller increments over a larger amount of time would be better.
So once again, maybe maybe comes back to empathy and compassion for others, trying to make sure that they don't have the rug pulled out from underneath them or something like that. Yeah. Would you say that what's underlying your desire to spend more domestically to help young people, help retirees, help fund Social Security, etc., would you say that that's also empathy and compassion, or is there something else at play there?
I think that for just seeing other friends and people in my community kind of suffer, but also then a little bit of, self-absorption, right? Obviously, I would like things to be cheaper. I would like things to be nicer here. I would like my student loans to be forgiven. But I think there's also a level of compassion and empathy there.
Okay. Yeah. So there's maybe a little bit of selfishness at play for wanting to increase domestic spending and possibly decrease that.
Yeah, because, okay. Who doesn't want their life to be a little bit easier, a little bit better?
Yeah. Is wanting your own life to be better a little bit or easier, is that a good way to make policy decisions?
I think if it's down to one person making decisions about themselves and about their lives, I don't think it's a good way. But if you're trying to understand if you're trying to, she'd be a great person to interview next. Actually,
yeah, well,
I'll send her out. Okay. I know exactly what she would talk about. That's going to be a great person to talk to.
Cool. Well, I look forward to it.
Yeah, no, I'll for sure catch them sometime. Sorry, where was I?
Oh, we were talking about
yes, we were talking about
wanting to improve your own life. Is that a good reason to make policy decisions? And I think you were kind of saying if it's purely selfishly, but maybe comparing that to like the role of the government for the entire country.
Yeah.
Might have been where you're going, but I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Like if it was just up to me to make every policy and I was making it purely out of what was going to make my life easier and better and not really applying it to anyone else. Some people's lives may be better consequentially, but it's not in the thought process. But I think if you're able to look at a larger populace kind of all calling out, hey, we're struggling, we need some help here. If it's not just one person being like, hey, I'm greedy, I want my life to be better, but if you get a collective populace in a democratic way, I think it's better to make that policy decision, because then it's just not one person being greedy and self-absorbent. It's what the foundation of your government wants.
Yeah, that's actually leads straight into the next question I was wanting to ask, which is something like, and I might word this poorly, how do you see the role of government when it comes to improving people's lives, improving the welfare of their citizenry? Do you see that there's a responsibility there?
I see that there is a responsibility to your citizens to help improve their lives. I know there's going to probably be some people who disagree with it and say the government needs to stick, to themselves and not really interfere, but the development of roads and public universities. This was Purdue, our main campus was a land grant campus. So I think just pursuing education and local development infrastructure and economics subsidiaries really help a lot of people. So I think it is important that
subsidies?
Subsidies,
yeah.
Subsidies are really important for the government to kind of take care of its citizens a lot.
Okay. So you do see there being a responsibility there. That's one of the roles of government.
Yeah.
Okay. On the other side of that coin, what sort of responsibility should a nation's government have to improving the lives of the human population across the world.
Yeah. So I mean,
Including
obviously, a
non-citizens.
government is gonna. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. You got it.
A government is going to obviously feel a lot of responsibility to allies, economic and political and militarily, to support them. Because typically they have better relations, and you want to ensure that they're doing well, so that way you're doing well. But the U.S. plays that role, but it also plays a different role where it can just help people. Oftentimes, it looks for reciprocity, and that's not just out of the government's generous heart. Kind of expects loyalty or favorable actions or favorable disposition towards themselves.
So you think
I
that's
think
part of what's happening with foreign aid? Is we're looking for something in return. Maybe the United States is looking for, you mentioned like allies. Is that a big part of what's happening here? Do you think it has somewhat has to do with kind of the international scene with allies and allying against other powers and expecting support back?
Yeah, I think the U.S. tries to spread an influence across the world, tries to maintain a sphere of influence. And I mean that's been going on for a while. And I think that happens a little bit with foreign aid. If you send foreign aid to a country, you kind of expect them to win it, just treat the U.S. more favorably or look upon them more favorably. Or
Does foreign aid also help maybe with the United States' reputation internationally?
I think it does. Obviously, the nations receiving more of a direct form of foreign aid are probably going to view the U.S. as a little bit of a better reputation. But the U.S. and a lot of nations sometimes carries a very negative reputation. I think providing foreign aid can help that reputation.
Okay.
Because then it makes them seem maybe less as a bad guy.
Okay. So kind of sounds like we've kind of come back around, and maybe another reason in favor of foreign aid, in addition to empathy and compassion for people, is that it maybe also improves the United States' standing internationally with other countries, their relationships with their allies. There's potential for reciprocity, where maybe in the future other countries will help the United States out with things that it wants to have done. Are those good reasons for giving foreign aid?
I think they're valid because it's still. Oh my goodness, she's coming back. You definitely have to get this girl
Okay.
on this interview, though. Veronica,
Yeah?
you should come back and do this in like 5 minutes.
Do what?
This interview thing. I
Hi.
think you have.
We're doing a protest.
Yeah, she's doing a protest.
Oh,
When is it over?
The protest?
Yeah,
The French minor.
I know. When?
At 3 o'clock.
oh, I'll be here till 4.
Okay, I'll think about it.
All right.
Bye.
See ya. I hope I'll be there till 4 if my battery's all out.
Yeah.
So
No, that would. Yeah, definitely someone to get.
yeah, she sounds like she's passionate about something. So
Yeah, it's the French minor, actually.
the French minor.
Yeah. Like,
Is this
like
a news
the
story I
degree.
don't know about? Oh,
It
she's
happened-
doing a.
So she's protesting because the university is cutting the French minor.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
No, so I don't know if you saw it, she had her face painted.
Yeah, I
with
saw the
the
little French flags and everything. Yeah, okay, gotcha. So they're cutting the French minor.
Yeah,
Gotcha. Okay.
she may give you a pin if she comes back.
All right. Well, I'll give her my card.
Fantastic. Whole trade.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely get her on here. But I think it's valid, right? Because if you're doing this to help the U.S.'s international reputation, which you think could help it in diplomatic means, build prestige, build influence, maybe get some reciprocity in military alliances, political alliances, or economic alliances, you're still looking out for the citizenry of the U.S., right? that's still your main focus, is to ensure a protection or try to obtain stability in an international, globalized world.
Yeah. Cool. Well, we've I think we kind of covered both sides of this fairly well. I'm going to kind of try to recap. Fill me in if there's anything I miss, and then if there's anything else you want to add, jump in, okay?
For sure.
So you're kind of looking at, trying to find this balance on foreign aid spending. Reasons why it's important to continue with foreign aid would include just empathy and compassion for others. The foreign aid helps people around the world improve their lives, whether that's with food or with defenses in some situations. You mentioned like Israel and Ukraine. Also, just international politics. We have allies. When we're allied with somebody, we expect them to do things for us. They expect us to do things for them. There's this reciprocity. Giving foreign aid can also possibly boost the United States' reputation internationally. Does that sound like we kind of covered that fairly well? But then reasons maybe to reduce foreign aid to spend more on domestic is, nations do have a responsibility to their citizenry. Maybe would you say possibly before their responsibility to people who are not citizens?
Yeah, I would probably say before, but kind of like what I was getting at that last point, your foreign aid is still a form, I feel, of doing something for your citizenry.
Okay. Because of those benefits that still come back internationally to the United States.
Still come back in some form or whatever. However, I feel like, the domestic use, it needs to be balanced with foreign aid. And I feel like at this moment in time that maybe we need to push the scales a little bit more towards domestic use.
And would you say that the main reasons that we need to push the scales that way are because there are pressing concerns at home? Things like,
I think housing,
inflation, housing, young people in massive debt,
cost of living.
I think you mentioned Social Security, maybe, that money running out potentially, retirees.
Yeah.
Okay. I feel like I might have been missing something else, but I think that was a lot of it, right? That responsibility that the government has to its citizenry. Okay. So when we started this conversation, you said that you were 70% confident the U.S. should spend less on foreign aid. What could you learn? Try to imagine something that either could change or something that you could learn that would make you even more confident that we should do that. Even more confident that we should divert federal aid money to domestic uses.
I think it would be based upon how foreign aid is used in other countries. How is it used on their citizens and on their nation? If it's going to one guy for greedy, ambitious reasons of getting rid of their student loans or whatever, that would definitely impact me going towards maybe more domestic. If it's not,
here's money for food.
Yeah.
Here's money for water. Here's money to build power plants. Oh, you just spent it on yourself. Oh, you have a big palace now.
Big palace, some nice rolls.
So you saw that there was a lot of corruption with how that money's used potentially.
Yeah, I think for sure. I think, if there was that corruption with money.
So it comes back to that impact then, right?
Yeah.
If you're not seeing, if the underlying fundamental reasons are empathy and compassion, and you want to see that foreign aid improving people's lives, and you see that maybe it's not doing that, that would make you more confident. Maybe we should cut back on this, at least in those circumstances.
Yeah, right. Because you don't eat a bad apple to ruin the bunch, right? Maybe it's just that guy.
Yeah. Likewise, what could you learn or find out, or what could change in the future? Any of those?
Why?
Sorry, this is a bad question because I've made it a compound question. What could decrease your confidence that the U.S. should should spend less on foreign aid, then maybe it would make you step back and say, you know what, maybe we should keep spending this much on foreign aid, or maybe even we should increase foreign aid.
If we are suing that like efficient use of foreign aid in people's lives, I also think if we saw an inefficiency in domestic use of funds, there's a lot of holdups or blockages, and the money that we have set aside for domestic use just isn't flowing like it should. I could see definitely keep foreign aid at that level, especially. I could also see it, in the future, keeping it at the same amount if you know, you decrease it a little bit and the world's kind of destabilizes a little bit.
Okay.
And some nations destabilize, or some governments just destabilize, right? I think I've come really across this entire interview that the U.S. is so important to everyone and to the world. Don't want to be super U.S. centric here, because obviously there are a lot of nations that give foreign aid in generous amounts. So, you know, I don't want to come around as U.S. centric. However,
Yeah, I think most people would accept that, you know, the U.S. is a major international political power and a major economy.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so.
But you know, if you start to see the destabilization of the world and you start to see this increasing rise of violence because you're starting to pull the rug on these local developments, food sources, you know, everyone's
So it sounds like, you know,
restless.
the way you'd be evaluating this, the kind of thing that's really influencing where you are on this topic is the impact that it has, the consequences of changing it, especially when it comes to, you know, the well-being of other people, stability, needs being met, and that comes back to that empathy and compassion.
Yeah, I think it's interesting also to think about maybe how you like measure that. How are you going to measure how another country is spending specifically the money you sent them?
That was actually what I was going to ask next, so it's great that you were thinking that already.
Yeah. How do you measure that? How do you measure impact? What kind of metrics? What kind of questions do you ask?
Yeah.
What kind of questions do you ask domestically?
Yeah. How do we really know the impact that our dollars are having, whether that's at home or internationally? And yeah, I think that like economists and do studies on waste and that sort of thing, but how they do that, I don't know.
Way above my level.
Yeah.
I'm a liberal arts major. All right, I took 2 math classes.
Yeah.
One of them was a level 100.
There you go.
Way above.
Yeah. All right. Cool. So, going to recap real quick, and let me know if I get anything wrong. I want to make sure I'm understanding your position properly and repeat it back to you. So, when it comes to making decisions about spending money on foreign aid, the most important factors are the impact, maybe the efficiency of the dollars. Is it doing what we want it to do? Is it improving people's lives? And then there's some sort of calculus trying to balance needs at home versus international, and that can possibly be tricky because spending money internationally does impact the citizenship back home through better international relations, through maintaining ties with our allies, through maintaining a good reputation on the world stage. But also, you can't have things falling apart at home. You got to make sure that people at home are being taken care of. Maybe not every single person gets every single thing that they want, like you said, but or at least, you know, you have a good baseline quality of life at home. And so there's a balance there. And currently, at least at the beginning of the conversation, you were 70% confident that we need to shift that balance to be spending a little bit more at home as opposed to international. And the thing that could change your mind about that, once again, comes back to this efficiency and the impact that those dollars are having. But one way or another, fundamentally, you want to see people's lives improve because of empathy and compassion. Does it sound like I've captured that appropriately?
Yeah. And I expect my perspective, or what, you have 600 subscribers, right?
Yeah, 600 something. Getting close to 700, I think.
Maybe there will be some comment or
Maybe.
someone saying something that will really change my mind. But I think this is a topic or an idea that can definitely shift, especially as time goes on. So it'll be
Do you feel like
interesting.
you've shifted from that 70% confidence that we should reduce spending on foreign aid during the conversation, or do you think you're still around there?
I still think I'm around there. Maybe I'll come and look, and maybe someone in the comments will help change my mind, or just maybe provide a different perspective, right? Because I'm just one guy who's not even in the government.
Right, there's a lot we don't know, right?
Yeah,
There's a lot I don't know, a lot you don't know. So
maybe some CIA agent will be like, well, here's why we have to spend more on foreign aid now, or something like
your
that.
CIA agent is listening right now.
The FBI agent watching me through my
Yep.
screen.
We
or
all got
whatnot.
one, I heard, so.
No,
Speaking of conspiracy theories.
there's not enough FBI agents to do that. No shot.
Everybody gets one assigned to them.
Yeah, no. So I expect my opinion onto this to change, right? You don't want to be set exactly in your same moral opinion and same opinions all the time.
Don't want to be rigid.
You definitely got to be open to change here.
Yeah, totally agreed. Open
I-
to new evidence, open to being swayed, open to change your mind about things. That's a lot of what I'm out here about. So, Forrest,
thank you.
thank you very much. What did you think about that conversation?
I thought it was pretty good. I think we covered both sides pretty well. Both sides of this kind of discussion, or the way we've framed it as both sides. So I feel like it's pretty good, and I feel like I elaborated myself pretty well.
Good. Do you feel like you have a better understanding of why you are where you're at?
I think I do, but I think I came in with a decent understanding of why I'm where I'm at. Obviously, I'm in a younger generation with less capital built up, with debt, and no land capital, or really a net worth, and not a super high paying job or a career yet. So I experience economic U.S. a little bit differently.
Do you think if you were in a different position economically, that you would feel differently?
I think I for sure could. If I was, had a stable career with a high paying job, with a house, with limited or no debt, solid net worth, all my needs and some of my wants met, I could probably definitely be more towards like, well, maybe we should improve foreign aid.
Yeah. Alternatively, maybe there are ways that we could spend money and shift money just domestically to meet your goals.
And obviously, I'm not like super poor. I live at home with my parents. I do not pay for housing.
Yeah.
And I get free food. I go to PFW. Loans aren't that high.
Right.
Got friends racking up like $25K a year, or $25K a semester in some private institutions.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, I'm wearing a Nike sash and nice clothing and everything. So I don't have a whole lot to complain about. Right. My needs are met. But it's just that little bit of like, in a year or
And
two.
you also look around, you see that, other people's needs might not be met too. So it doesn't always have to be coming from like a self-centered position either.
Yeah.
So.
No. So.
I'm not calling you self-centered.
Oh, no,
Take
you're
that the wrong
fine.
way.
You're okay. You're okay.
So.
But in like 3 years, when I'm trying to step out, trying to buy a house, trying to start stuff, everything I've heard from friends trying to take that leap is that the entry level positions are getting pretty competitive, and that the wages necessarily aren't what they want them to be or need them to be.
Yep.
Here again. Who knows
Totally
what will be like in 3 or 4 years?
Yeah.
It could change.
Yeah, things can change. That's for sure.
Things could change.
Things. I feel like anybody who lived through the last 5-6 years is aware that things can change pretty quickly.
Things can change.
All right. Well, I have a parting gift for you. This is a little stress ball thing. Take whatever color you like. Street epistemology is what I'm doing out here. It's like I kind of described, a way of talking to people, in helping them reflect on their beliefs and their thought process through civil conversation, keeping it civil but also taking it seriously.
Yeah.
So, I also got a card here for you. So, this has got my email address, link to my YouTube channel, and there's also more info on street epistemology in the back. Cool. Forrest, that was awesome.
Thanks for taking the time to watch this video all the way to the end. I hope you found it thought-provoking, or at least entertaining. If you appreciate the content and tone of what I'm producing, please consider liking this video, subscribing to my channel, and ringing the bell to be notified when I release a new video. Your support helps me continue creating more videos like this one. I also encourage you to share your thoughts in the comments section. Respectful discourse centered on constructive criticism goes a long way toward helping me improve. Please remember to be kind to everyone featured in the video, just as I am to be when practicing street epistemology. Stay curious and keep questioning.